Take a look at this picture. On Earth, everything that has ever existed in all of humanity has happened right here in this picture. Everything that ever will happen in the future is going to happen right here. So the question that we care about as environmental scientists is, are we living sustainably on Earth? Are we living in such a way that allows us to use Earth's resources but leaves enough for future generations to be able to use? This place, Earth, this blue, gorgeous marble, has provided us all of the resources that we need to support life. Let's talk about some of those resources right now. Earth has provided us with many, many resources, and we call these resources ecosystem services. Some ecosystem services include food, building materials, energy, medicine, also crop pollination, water filtration, leisure, fun, spiritual. Being out in the open is a good thing and can be very helpful to your mind and your body. All of these ecosystem services contribute to our overall well-being as humans. We can determine whether or not an environment is healthy or not through certain environmental indicators. These environmental indicators help all of us to determine the health and the quality of our natural systems. In our book, and throughout the year, we are going to be discussing 5 environmental indicators throughout our time together. These environmental indicators include biodiversity, food production, the average global temperatures and carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere, human population, and resource depletion. Let's talk about each one of these environmental indicators. Let's start off with biodiversity first. Biodiversity has 3 subsets that we'll discuss here in our chapter. The first one is genetic diversity. So as the genetic diversity of the organisms in a specific area increases, those organisms are better able to respond to certain changes that might occur. And they're better able to respond compared to organisms that might have lower genetic diversity. The book gives us an example of fish, and a large population of fish with a very high genetic diversity might have greater disease resistance compared to a population of fish that has lower genetic diversity. And because of this disease resistance, the larger population of fish will be healthier and may be able to better ride out whatever the disease will do to the population of fish. Another piece of the puzzle here is species diversity. Now, species, the definition of species is a group of organisms with very distinct morphology, behavior, and biochemical properties. And the speciation of certain organisms is a very, very slow process. Speciation is the evolution of new species, very slow process. The extinction rate is also pretty slow too. The background extinction rate of organisms is supposed to be about 1 organism for every 1 million species. Scientists have classified about 2 million species here on Earth. That means that we should see about 2 extinctions per 2 million organisms. Unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing that of the 5 million to 100 million species estimated to be on Earth, 10,000 or so are going extinct every year. That right there is a sign that something might be up. The higher the species diversity, the more resilient those organisms are to change, and the more productive they are in their environment. Frogs are sometimes used to determine the species diversity indicator in specific environments, because frog skin is very permeable to the air and to any toxins that might be in the water. So if a very large, very diverse group of different frog species start to go extinct within a specific area, not extinct, but maybe go missing from a specific environment or area, you could make a claim that the health of that area is probably declining as well. So the greater species diversity, the more resilient to change. And then the other little subset here that we'll talk about underneath the biodiversity umbrella is ecosystem diversity. So as you increase the number of healthy and productive ecosystems in an area, you get a healthier environment overall. Another environmental indicator that we care about is food production. Abundant food production and abundant food supply comes from healthy soils. And since the 1950s or so, global grain production has increased steadily. Why is that? Well, innovations in irrigation, water irrigation, better fertilizers, new crop types, and modern agriculture has all kind of helped out to increase the amount of grain per capita. Now, when I say the word per capita, that is referring to per human on Earth. Recently, though, in the last couple decades, it seems like grain production has leveled off. This very well could be due to a decrease in the soil quality, crop disease, climate change, and any other weather conditions that could affect growing plants, including potentially drought. Another environmental indicator is the average global temperatures and carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. Earth's temperature has remained relatively constant, and that's because greenhouse gases in the atmosphere trap heat energy. However, in the last 200 years or so, greenhouse gases have begun to increase in our atmosphere. Most scientists believe the uptake in average global temperatures is anthropogenic. This means caused by human activity, very likely because of an increase in the combustion of fossil fuels. We'll talk about this environmental indicator more in the class later on in the year. Another environmental indicator is human population. I just Googled human population and I came up with this number, 7,632,819,325 individuals living on this earth. And if you take a look the last 4 years at least, that number has continued to increase. So the question again comes back to the sustainability aspect. Are we living on our earth sustainably so that we can feed, shelter, clothe, and manage that number of people on this earth? That's something that we will explore throughout our course. Our final environmental indicator is resource depletion. Patterns of the usage of the resources that Earth provides are all over the map. And it depends very much so on whether or not a country is developed or not. As developing countries continue to grow and get developed, additional resources will absolutely be needed. But those additional resources are going to put a bigger, larger strain on the planet. So that whole issue of sustainability comes back to the fore as we go through and explore environmental science and all of these environmental indicators. Think about that. What are we doing on Earth to make it a better place for future generations?